Alhamdulillah nahmadahu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Qala Allah ta'ala fil Qur'an al-Kareem, a'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajeem, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. هو الذي يرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قولوا قولا سديدا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا واتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم. نحن ولا شاهدين وشاكرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we thank Him, we glorify Him, and indeed we declare that Him and Him alone is worthy of all worship and no one else is. And we ask that He send His and ours best of blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who will continue to love Him and abide Him until the end of time. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure and honor again to revisit this beautiful, wonderful community. I am deeply grateful for the invitation and to also revisit with all of you. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah bless those who have established this community and those who continue to serve in whatever capacity. May Allah bless you and your families, your children and grandchildren in eternity, inshallah. This afternoon, I like to share some reflections on an ayah from Surah As-Saf. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu hal adullukum ala tijaratin tunjikum min azabin alim. And the reason I want to lift up some reflections from this particular ayah is because we live, particularly in US and West in general, and maybe not in West in general also now, we live in a capitalist system. I want us to reflect and ask ourselves, how do we navigate in this system? But before I share some reflections on this particular ayah, I like to talk a little bit about what capitalist system means, or how do we understand, or how does it impact or not impact us as individuals and as a collective group of people. Many of us perhaps have studied this in our, if not in high school, at least in college. The system of capitalism essentially is to compound materials, call it wealth or call it any other material resource, to make two out of one. And as a result, the idea is that all of us will prosper, which may have been true at some point, but evidently we don't see that happening today. And we see a great deal of divide and disparity and inequality in the system. You have a group of people who have a whole lot or everything in some instances, and then we have a whole lot of people at the bottom of the ladder who may have very little or nothing for no fault of theirs. So we live in a system which is all about transactions. Transactions where two parties transact, either as individuals or as group of people and a society in general. And the idea is one of them, or in some cases both of them, will benefit from that transaction. A weaker party or a stronger party, either they will proportionately gain from that transaction or otherwise. And in these transactions, oftentimes we see, at least in this system, that those who have more, or those who are more resourceful, or those who are more in power, or have greater resources, tend to, more often than not, benefit more than those who don't have the resources. So a crude but nevertheless a relevant example for us to reflect on is, let's say, a big corporation. Federal Express, Bank of America, T-Mobile, and so on. The resources that they have and the ability that they have to control and manage the benefits of the transaction is exponentially more than you and I as individuals. That's the system we live in. Right or wrong, another discussion, another time perhaps. So we are used to those transactions. As a result, our lives, our personal, individual, collective, social, economical lives are if not always, in many cases, revolve around those transactions. So transactions has a meaning to our life. And then you have of course, the social and familial transactions that we cannot escape from. Of course, family transactions, transactions with each other in the community, and so on and so forth. But I like us to keep that as a context to what I'm going to reflect on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also invites you and I to engage in a transaction. The ayah I recited is nothing but a transaction, literally, addressing you and I. Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu hal adullukum ala tijara. I want to do a trade with you for lack of, or rather for better understanding for us, I want to make a deal with you. Now, so keep in mind the contemporary prevalent model of transactions between two folks, stronger and weaker, namely consumer and service provider or a corporation, just to draw an analogy. And then you have a transaction here with your creator and the created. And in a contemporary transaction, the weaker party is more likely to lose, proportionately speaking, to the party who has more. And in this transaction, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator, infinitely more resourceful and powerful than the created, that's us. But yet, the transaction is offered to make you, the weaker party, win, always. It's profoundly beautiful. That, oh, you who believe, we offer you a bargain, a trade, right? So it's your call, your choice to take this trade, embrace it, or reject it. Sometimes we may be rejecting this unintentionally. God forbids we don't want to reject this intentionally. And so the ayah continues that this trade will offer you an outcome, a benefit, a reward for which you strive in your entire life, every single living moment of your life, in achieving that outcome. And he is giving you for free, essentially. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu hal adullukum ala tijaratin tunjikum min azabin alim. If you embrace this trade, this transaction, you will be relieved from the eternal, eventual punishment that may be awaiting you, God forbids. Inshallah, we will be relieved from that because you do believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this transaction is so unique that it will, the outcome of this, the benefit of this, the reward of this has no price. You cannot buy this. You know, the regular transactions fluctuate. We all are subjected to the rhetoric of Wall Street, this today and that today, and it was X point and today is Y point and so on and so forth. Fluctuates, right? In this instance, your outcome is guaranteed and constant. But there is a trade, indeed. The reward is the offer, and the transaction that we have to embrace follows the ayah. So how do we go about and benefit from this transaction? What are the prerequisites? What are the things that we have to do in order to benefit from these transactions? And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers us these three simple principles. Well, not simple, but three important and profound principles. One, tu'minuna billah. That you believe, you have this faith, this idea in your heart and mind, in your soul and spirit, permanently and deeply rooted, that He is the creator and you are the created. He is everything, you are nothing. Right? It's a very challenging offer. We habitually and monotonously, of course, say, yeah, we believe in Allah. But if we all pause for a moment and actually question ourselves, what does that belief actually mean? How do we express that? Then it becomes a very challenging thing for us. And then the second transactional offer that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes is وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَرُسُولِهِ. And indeed, you also have the belief in His messenger, in His prophet who brought you the essentials of life that you embrace completely. So these are two internal, and none of us would know what level of belief and faith I have in my heart toward my Creator and toward my prophet. I don't. None of us would know. We may have some ways of expressing it with our words, but it's only words. So the second or the third component of this transaction is external, where perhaps to some extent we all can measure ourselves, not necessarily each other, but ourselves. وَتُجَاهِدُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. That you engage and strive and struggle for only and only one purpose, not for your personal gain, not for our collective benefit, but for the love of your Creator. No ulterior motives whatsoever of any kind. Only for the exclusive pleasure and love of your Creator. وَتُجَاهِدُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ. So what is it? What would you strive with? Then the question becomes. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers. Bi amwalikum wa anfusikum. With the material stuff that we have given you temporarily, to be a custodian of that. You are not a permanent owner of that. Right? It's the material things that you have. And then the immaterial thing, but more important than the material thing, which is your nafus, which is your self itself. that you struggle and strive for the pleasure, for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the recipe we have of this transaction, of this trade with your Creator, which will eventually release and relieve you from the ultimate potential punishment, God forbids, that we may have in the life hereafter. So I want us to reflect on the prevailing environment and culture and context in which we live, of a transactional relationship versus transformational relationship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands of us and asks us and invites us to embrace, which will help us transform ourselves in this life in the most meaningful way, and also in the hereafter will protect and preserve us from that which we ought to be most concerned and afraid of. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our mistakes and our shortcomings, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the blessings and the wisdom and the courage to always, always be mindful of that which is more important, that which is more profound than that which is only mundane in our lives. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله ولكم وسائر المسلمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. In closing, I happen to be here this afternoon on behalf of a group of people who are striving and struggling to speak truth to power for about 12 years in an organized fashion. And they are known as Muslims for Palestine, American Muslims for Palestine, which is an organization that was formally established in 2005 for two reasons. Reason one, to challenge the unconditional, immoral, unethical support of our country, which means our tax dollars, to the state of apartheid Israel and occupation and oppression of a people who have inhabited this land for millenniums. I am privileged to serve the Board of American Muslims of Palestine, and I've had the honor of traveling and staying and visiting with people who are living under occupation for the last 70 years in occupied Palestine. And the purpose of AMP is A, to challenge truth to power, and B, also to help folks, common folks like you and I, to heighten the awareness about this one injustice among many other injustices that indeed are happening. But why is it relevant to you and I? Because we are intricately and intimately connected with the land of Al-Quds. And my last visit to Palestine was less than 6 months ago. And inshallah, at some point in time, I'll be more than happy to revisit if I'm allowed or invited to this community and offer you my personal experiences and share those experiences with you. But this particular visit was extremely important and exceptional for me for two reasons. Reason number one, as many of you may know, that Masjid al-Aqsa was under siege in summer of 2017, between July and August. And those were the exact two and a half weeks that I was there as a witness to the siege of Masjid al-Aqsa. And I took the liberty in thanking our Palestinian brothers and sisters who are natives of city of Al-Quds, also known as Jerusalem, to thank them profoundly from the bottom of my heart to defend and protect the honor and sanctity and sacredness of Masjid Al-Aqsa that belongs to all of us. And they did this with valor, they did this with grace, and they did this with absolute no desire and ulterior motive except for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for his deen and for the love of Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who prayed there. And we know the whole story. And the second reason why this particular visit was also important for me, along with many other folks, Muslims and non-Muslims who traveled with me in 2017, was because 5 of the 23 people who were part of this group that I traveled with were considered or treated as a national security threat for the apartheid Israel because we challenge the apartheid that exists in the country. 3 of them were Jews, 1 of them was Christian, and your brother in Islam was the 5th one who is now permanently banned to enter the apartheid state of Israel, although, quote unquote, I am a resident and citizen of this nation who supports the apartheid, continual apartheid in Israel and occupation and oppression of Palestinian people. Why did I say all of this story? And the reason I said this is American Muslims for Palestine is absolutely, unconditionally, deeply committed to continue its justice work regardless of whatever difficulties that may be thrown at us. And all of us are collectively responsible in one way or the other. For sure, directly we are all responsible because your tax dollars, more than $3 billion plus, has been a permanent, near permanent support every year to apartheid Israel by the United States of America, without which it cannot survive. Therefore, we all are collectively responsible for this. And I hope and pray that we all are sensitive to this to whatever extent that we can. And AMP has been trying to reach out to various communities, to offer the information that you may already know of this injustice that continues in this land for the last 7 decades, and B, to remind us and offer us an opportunity to participate in that movement in any way, form, or shape. It is unfortunate, I must say, that among mostly non-Arab, non-Palestinian people, there is great love for Masjid Al-Aqsa. There is great love for Palestine, but that is not expressed in activism, that is not expressed in conversations, that is not expressed in traveling to these lands when we go for our Umrah. So particularly in this community, which is by and large ethnically speaking of South Asian descent like me, I like to challenge ourselves to make sure that more of us, not less of us, go to pay our respects to our brothers and sisters in Palestine, and also proudly pray in Masjid Al-Aqsa, just as with great love we pray in Masjid Al-Haram in Mecca and Masjid Al-Nabawi, Nabawi in Madinat Al-Munawwara, inshallah. And thirdly and lastly, if you like to participate in this and support American Muslims of Palestine, the leadership of this masjid was very gracious to invite me today to speak on behalf of American Muslims of Palestine and ask you to contribute in any which way that you can. This is not a fundraiser. This is not a very formal fundraiser, but there are 2 particular programs that AMP has embarked on to lift up this issue. One is to reach out to the representatives who actually represent us in the legislative branch. So each year there is a capital activism day where hundreds of young men and women from our communities are invited to Washington, D.C., and then they go and visit the legislative reps of their particular area to remind them that we know their position either for justice or against justice in this context, which will also empower our young men and women to really assume the leadership that they so richly deserve and they so richly need to address this malaise, this cancer that exists in the world today. Secondly, a group of folks, particularly from the leadership community, to also send them to Palestine, to eyewitness. Many of us may have read, many of us may have seen pictures, many of us may have seen videos, but I can guarantee you, because I have also been a victim of that sentiment that I think I know it all, but once you go there and experience and live with the people, listen to their stories, eat their food, sleep in their houses, talk to their children, and talk to the people who have been displaced and dispossessed over the last 7 decades, then your perception completely changes and you begin to realize that you know nothing actually. So to heighten that sensitivity, AMP has and will be sending every year a group of people from throughout the country to go and experience that. Why? Because that will heighten their awareness and sentiment about this injustice that exists. So I invite you to sponsor, to support these 2 particular programs if you can and if you wish to support this. I'll be more than happy to answer further questions you may have today, or talk to Abu Haytham or Brother Maher, and I have some pledge forms if you'd like to indeed support today. And this is not again a fundraising pitch per se, but certainly inviting you sincerely to consider your support in every which way that's possible. I go back and I close with where we started, that we live in a system of transactions and profit and loss, revenue and income, and win and loss, and so on and so forth. Let us also remember perpetually and very keenly of our transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will help relieve us of the eventual and eternal punishment that we may, God forbids, face in the life hereafter if we are not sensitive and aware of our role and our responsibility and our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His Prophet, and we continue to strive and struggle with material and immaterial things that we may have at this point. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our mistakes and our shortcomings. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to unite our hearts and our ranks. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our children and grandchildren. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us speak truth always, including truth to the power. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always have the deepest empathy for the poor and the oppressed and the occupied wherever they are. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless those who are suffering in various trials and tribulations in different parts of the world. And we ask Allah that we are grateful for this blessing that we have to be living and praying in a harmonious and comfortable and safe environment. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our mistakes and our shortcomings. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنتَ الْوَهَّابُ اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
استووا واعتدلوا تراصوا وسدوا الفرج. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر. والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم. سبحان الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما أخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سبحان سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله استغفر الله.
So again, just to remind and request all of us today, you know, when I was quote unquote told by the Israeli defense forces that I cannot go to Jerusalem and I'm banned, I made a commitment to myself that if I cannot go, I send 10 other people to go in my behalf. So I request you to consider supporting as much as possible for this National Activism Day of Young People. Last year there were 175 young men and women, our brothers and sisters from throughout the country who came to the Capitol Hill and did some lobbying. And this year we hope to do the same. Each person costs anywhere around $400 to $500, travel, housing, and so on and so forth. Half of that is already sponsored by some generous community members. So if you want to sponsor somebody today, it costs you only, we're asking only $250 to sponsor a young man or a sister to go to DC, and I hope and pray that you, inshallah, will be able to do that today. This is the toughest part. I don't do quote-unquote fundraising. I don't know how to do this other than simply laying it out to you. If you can, it's great. If you can't, make it all right.
Inshallah, tonight we have a program for the young Muslims, Love Struck by Sheikh Jamil Basada. The program will start about 7 o'clock. The Isha prayer will be at 7:30, followed by the program, and inshallah we'll have dinner as well. So our request for great brother Wasim Security is hospitalized. Please make dua for his full and speedy recovery, inshallah. Don't forget your center, inshallah. It's strictly entirely for your donations. We provide many services, so those services cannot be provided unless your contribution is there. So whatever you can do, $5, $10, $20 before you go out, can help a lot. Also, lunch is available outside. Some of the proceeds also goes towards the center as well. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
السلام